Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Dr. Cammy Goes Keto, where I'm transitioning from a ketogenic lifestyle, from a standard American diet and from sugar binging to a ketogenic lifestyle. And I have my chakra crown on that opens my crown chakra that I got from my conference, my consciousness conference. And it's got amethyst on it, and it's just gorgeous. And it's designed to help me heal. And thank you so much, Mike, for being here today. And so we started talking a little bit before we started recording about me eating off-plan food and sugar. And so we're going to continue that conversation right now. And so what I was telling Mike was that sometimes we were talking about sneakiness and how I sneak the sugar and how I was going to my conference where I was going to eat healthy. I did eat healthy in front of my other people. And then I went on vacation and I ate healthy there. But in between, I had this opportunity where I snuck my sugar walking back up to my son's place. And so I'm walking along the sidewalk, just eating all this stuff. And so I was sneaking it. And then the other times when I binge or eat off plan food is when I feel like I can't not do it. Like I'm just stuck in this situation where I know I don't want to do it. And I think about all the reasons why I shouldn't be doing it, but then I just can't not do it. And I go and do it anyway. So I was asking Mike about that, about how if he had some times where he was sneaking things, and we were talking about how when we were young, we would always sneak things. And so these are some of the things that are going on around me not being able to stay on my plan.
I was really accentuating or trying to cleave apart the phrase, I can't not do it. I mean, we'll talk about sneaking in a second because I'm pretty familiar with sneaking, but I can't not do it. What is that like? What does that feel like? Why don't you use the tools of calling someone? Why don't you think it all the way through? What overwhelms your brain in that case? Can't not do it.
Yeah, I think part of it is that I get too busy thinking about how it's going to taste when I eat the sugar, and the actual taste of the sugar on my tongue can't like I want it so badly. And the other part of it is the way it's going to make me feel, how it's going to give me some relief from whatever it is that's going on.
Right.
And the other thing that sometimes I think it does is that I think that sometimes it's hard for me to be feeling happy and successful.
Okay, so this is good. This is exactly where I wanted to head with this whole thing because of the timing of the binge or the slip or whatever you want to call it. It's like it was in between two joyous life events, maybe three because you were visiting your son or, near whatever. It's like literally like the life that you envisioned for yourself was in manifest as opposed to the regular everyday go to the gym, feed yourself, living at home, repetitiveness, whatever. You were living a life where, you're building a practice online and helping people and, the whole we've talked about the internet lifestyle where you're free geographically, you can go anywhere, you can do whatever you want, and you were living it. You were in the middle of it, like you had it going on, like the conference, the friends, the girlfriends, the son, life was big, life was good. And I've told you many, many times, and people have heard me say it 100 times, it's like, I have to be watched when things are going well. I have to be in touch with people when things are going well. And I have to get over my damn self and find people who don't roll their eyes when I tell them all the good stuff that's going on in my life, who don't like think that I'm bragging or, and I don't have the conversation with people whose lives aren't getting bigger. The whole, you need to be going to a life in recovery where your life is bigger and better than it was than the life you're leaving. Right. And so I just really think that it sounds so ridiculous and so counterintuitive and so like, why wouldn't I want my life to be good? And it's because we're just not used to it. It's just not a thing we're used to. Right. And it's like the devil you know versus the devil you don't. And so I really think that you need to be watched when things are going well. Not even watched, but you need to be using the tools of and having in your life people who would celebrate that with you. And that you could talk honestly and openly. I think one of the things in any of the successes I've had in my life and the ups and downs is like, it's the whole average of the 5 people you hang around with the most, where, and you're not doing it to brag. You're just doing it to say, I can remember one time I was going on my first Caribbean cruise, or I was going on my first Caribbean island or something, and I'm with my ex-wife, and I'm having this conversation where we're discussing the trip and we're discussing the whole thing. I said at the end of it, it's like, I can't believe I just had this conversation, or I had this talk where we're, talking about the trip and the beach and the hotel overlooking the whole thing. And I'm describing it. And I'm like, I literally consciously had the thought of, I can't believe that I just had this thought, or I had this conversation, or had this, you know what I mean? And I was genuine. I couldn't believe it, because heretofore I had never had that kind of a life or a good thing happen, that kind of a good thing. And I think that deep down, we have this feeling of not worthy. And a lot of recovery, if it's boiled down, is about non-worthiness, or not feeling like you're worthy of the good things in life. So, and it really, like I said, it's so counterintuitive. Why would someone think that? Why would that be even possibly be true? But I see it over and over and over and over again. The relapse rate in the alcohol and drugs between days 360 and 365 is insane, because people can't see themselves as a sober person and having that success. So, yeah, it's just another awareness that you're being gifted the universe. Another awareness that you're coming to, that you're like, that you have to be conscious of. You can't just let it happen.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm realizing now, like, that when I'm out of my routine, like when good things are happening, or when things that are unplanned, or it's a surprise for me, those are, all of those things are times for me to do that double down on checking in, on going to more meetings, on beefing up my tools, on prayer and meditation and reaching out to God and all of those things. And it's true, because like when happy, fun things are happening, I don't think about that. I'm like, oh yay, this is going to be so much fun. And then I figure like I'm okay. And really I'm not okay. And there's this part of me that just feels like I don't deserve to be happy, like I'm not worthy of it. And I'm starting to really realize that. And I have this wonderful life. I mean, I've had an incredible career, and I delivered thousands of babies, and when that would happen, like the heavens would open up and the angels would come down, and it's like you have that experience, you can't help but just realize that there's so much to that whole experience. And I had it thousands of times, it's just amazing when
Right.
I think about it. And so yeah, but being happy is something that doesn't sit right with me, because when I was little, and there were 7 kids and a mom that needed a lot of nurturing herself that she got through her children, you didn't really realize it was kind of chaotic in the way that you didn't know what was going to happen at any given moment. So you were always like you were always on the defensive. You were always like surviving, right? Like what's going to happen next? What's going to happen next? What's going to happen next? And that's part of your that's part of my DNA. And so to change that out, to really switch out all that goes on in the cells, it takes time too. And
Yeah.
and you have to be active with it, right? You have to be aware of it. And you have to be like, oh, this is what's going on. This is what I need to do to keep myself healthy.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's so, I keep using that word, but it's counterintuitive that, like, why wouldn't someone want that life? But it really is have to, you described it perfectly with the young, when you were young, and a bunch of kids and chaos, and you didn't really like, didn't get kind of ingrained in you that that was okay, that you could have this big life. There was always lack and chaos and what have you. I mean, that's what I grew up in, lack and chaos, basically. Or I felt like it was lack and chaos. I mean, we never lacked for food or anything, but it was like, any extras and that kind of stuff. But yeah, I mean, it's hard. I mean, it's hard. And again, and I don't know the connection. I don't know how, they loosely describe low self-esteem or the worthiness issue. I don't know if you remember that Saturday Night Live uh, skit that it was so popular. It went on as a meme. It's still a meme. It's like, I'm good and I'm happy and people like me. It's like, I can't remember how he said it, but it was really good. And it's so true, it's so true. Like, you have to condition yourself. That he was looking in a mirror when he was saying this. But I just like, honestly, Cammy, 100% transparency. And honestly, it is my biggest growth. 40 in 2 days, I'll be sober 40. And it is still to this day, my biggest challenge to accept the good things in life, to accept the financially, emotionally, relationships, career building without some kind of self-sabotage in my life. You know what I mean? It truly is a phenomena that I am a lived phenomena for me, this kind of need to pay attention to like letting the positive in.
Yeah. Yeah. I relate totally. I understand that completely. And the other thing that comes to mind for me, allowing the good to be there, is the commitment and the discipline to have the good be there. Like, I did this 92 days with no sugar, no flour, and no caffeine.
Right.
And I'm having a hard time now, like getting back on that track because I really want to do it again because I felt so good. And, and then I was able to achieve it, so I felt like successful. And I almost wonder if that's part of it. If it's like I'm struggling to get back to it because then I would be happy and I would be successful and I would have, this wonderful life as I went through my days of being abstinent. And so it's just frustrating because like I want to be there, but then I won't let myself go there. And then when I'm not there, I'm sitting in this, off plan eating and sugar in my system and caffeine. And that is not, and so then that doesn't make me happy either.
Right. Right. Yeah. I mean, you're in it, my dear. You're in it. You're in the middle of it all, and it's all a big swirl in your brain. One of the things about most people, but definitely people who think a lot or whatever, is that again, I've been talking about this like it doesn't make any logical sense. We intellectually understand what we're doing. And this, I think, is with the sugar in general or any addiction in general. We understand intellectually what we're doing, like that we're hurting ourselves, harming ourselves, continuing a bad loop or bad processes over and over again. It is truly deeply understood intellectually, like in our minds. But that's not what we have to heal. We have to heal our unconscious, like worthiness issues, our unconscious issues that are somehow we can't touch them or we can't think them or something. It's hard to explain. Like, it's hard to even articulate. It's like when you get a feelings list and you can't really identify how it feels for this specific emotion. But this idea that you're hurting yourself repeatedly for what I think, I mean, if you want to just do it intellectually and scientifically, is like you're doing it because I think that a lot of us are sensitive, and that when we get a blast of dopamine or some manual manipulation of our dopamine, serotonin, norepinephrine, GABA, oxytocin, adrenal glands, endorphins, cannabinoid receptors, we can manually manipulate it, and it really is pleasurable, right? It's like really pleasurable for us to activate this these things that were created to advance the species, help you in survival and whatever. We get an unconscious, very barely perceptible, because most addicts of any stripe are not getting the buzz that they used to get. They're just trying to get back to even so they don't go in withdrawals and feel bad, right? And so this real sensitivity to these, and again, I'm leaning on the intellectual a little, or the you know the yeah, the intellectual a little more than the emotional, but it must be, because I don't think anyone would be lying if they told you they could, that knew the answer to addiction. But they're leaning on the emotional uh, feeling that you get from the manual manipulation of substances in general, right? Whatever they are, or other things, processes, sex, gambling, whatever. They're leaning, they're it's superseding their actual intellect, you know what I mean? It's
Mhm.
above their intellect in some base kind of base kind of what we're craving from our body or from our existence even. I know that sounds a little out there, but I do believe it because I know tons of brilliant people who are addicts. Like, in 40 years, I've met so many crazy brilliant people, but they continue this self-sabotage, whatever you wanna call it, this self-immolation. I don't know what it is. They keep doing bad things to their body and their being and their behavior and their life for a reason. And that reason, I think, is to medicate the shame, medicate the feeling of unworthiness, of I'm not enough, all of those things that is so deep that we can't even bring it to our conscious awareness without being in severe pain. You know what I mean? I don't know. I got a little out there, but I don't think I said anything that I don't believe.
And, do you do like, I think about deserving to be happy, like, I deserve to have a good life, and I work toward that, and I work toward being happy, but, like, I think that deep down inside, I have this feeling like, I hate my life, and it's a thought that I have, and then I'll do these things in my life to make sure that I keep that going. And I don't want to do that anymore. I want to love my life, and I have a great life, and I want to appreciate that. And, I do have a lot of gratitude for everything that's going on in my life. And, so I do think that there's like the physical, the emotional, and the spiritual part of you, right? And the emotional and spiritual part is what is causing me, the lack of having them be healthy is what's causing me to hurt myself physically.
Yeah, I mean, I think the spiritual and the emotional is, in the healing process, is I don't want to say fake it till you make it kind of thing, but it is an emotional, I've had a good word there, an emotional faith, an emotional belief that you're doing the right thing, like a gratitude list of sorts, like the way that a gratitude list works, where you are continuously overriding bad programming or bad feelings over and over. And it is work, and the people don't understand that the work is the constant reminding yourself and the constant putting yourself. And one thing I want to talk about is slowing down to speed up. Everybody, addicts particularly, or everybody, wants things now and more and now. Dopamine has been described as the drug of more. And so we want it right away, and we're not willing to. And sometimes I don't think that the leap can be, in a lot of times. I mean, I think there can be quantum leaps, and I've been looking for one my whole life. But in the last 10 years, I've more accepted that the growth is incremental, and that working on the growth is the life, you know what I mean? It's not like a drug will give you an instant feeling good, right? It's like, but you didn't work for 5 or 10 years to save, or work on a skill or something where you would get what is described in the great book, the flow state, the flow state. And I think that the feeling good is in the world reversed. In other words, we're only supposed to have these crazy exaggerated highs or these peaceful moments, 10 or 20% of of life, and then the rest is the working towards them. And in today's society, that's completely reversed. People want to have that instant gratification like 80% of the time, and that's not conducive to, healthy, mature growth, feeling good that way. And the same thing goes with this topic that we're talking about, that the work, the maturity work, the gratitude, where all this work is work to get to those, 10, 20, 30% of peaceful lives. Everything's good with the life, with my life in the world. A lot of people describe that first cup of coffee in the morning or that first drug in the morning of the day as that time, and then they go ahead and chase it all freaking day because
Mhm.
it up a little bit and, you've healed overnight and you rested, and then you have that one blast and you're sitting there and everything's right with the world for about 20 minutes, and then you got to go chase that feeling again. Well, that feeling is not supposed to be there all day. It's you get it at the end of a day and you're watching the sunset and you've had a great meal and, you have an hour with your family, and that's because you put in the rest of the day is, working on yourself and working on whatever you're trying to get good at. I don't know. It's again, this is as much for me as you in any way, that this is my biggest struggle, to accept the good things and to up that ratio during the day.
And to find the pleasure in doing the work, to find pleasure and happiness in.
Absolutely 100% right. That's it. To enjoy the fact that you are working towards it. I read this or heard this great thing from Huberman's thing, is that there is a midbrain, I can't remember what they called it, but it has a midbrain, a part of the brain where athletes have it. Your brain is actually smaller when you do things you don't want to do repeatedly. It
Mm.
gets bigger, and that overweight peoples are smaller, and that, and like, he was actually talking to David Goggins when he, who David Goggins is? So
Y
Goggins is this guy who used to weigh 300 pounds, and now he's like a real famous, he made it to, he snapped out of it, made it, became a SEAL, like a SEAL team, whatever guy. And now he's a real famous author and whatever. And it's all because he has learned to enjoy the suck, whatever. Choose your suck or choose your heart is the phrases that people use.
Uh-huh.
It
Uh-huh.
actually grows your brain now. They have science that grows that part of your brain. When you hit it right on the head, to learn to enjoy. I always tell people I spent the first 50 years of my life trying to get out of work, and now spend the next 50 to find to figure out how to enjoy it, to really lean into it, So I think there's no shortcuts, you can't just ingest something and manifest the feeling that drugs or alcohol or sugar does.
Yeah, it has to be slow and steady and consistent and find the happiness in that, in living.
Yeah. 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 Even saying it, thinking about it, talking about it sounds so stupid or sounds ridiculous that you and I have these great lives. We lack for nothing, literally nothing, you know, great kids and had careers that we liked. And it's just like, and we can't, like, we're still searching for, or we're still sabotaging when good things are happening. It just doesn't make any sense, really. I think that's why addiction recovery is so hard in general, because I think there's a lot more to be studied about it. I want a
Yeah.
citizen scientist group of recovery. I'm so impressed by, I don't know if you've seen the cholesterol code that came out, Dave Feldman and the cholesterol stuff.
No, he wrote the book is out, there's a book out, or.
It's a movie.
Oh, it's a movie.
Yeah. And they have a group of citizen scientists, and I've never really heard it in addiction recovery. I've never heard the citizen scientist, um, moniker. Yeah. When in reality, in addiction recovery, pretty much all of the success came from citizen scientists. Even the 12 steps came from citizen scientists. They didn't come from doctors who studied it. It came from and comes from repeatedly, um, the people who advance and do well, people who are not therapists and MDs and PhDs, but regular folks who study it deeply and live it, right? Largely now still in the 12 step, but I think with the advent of online communities and a lot of different modalities, that's changing. And, I kind of want to start the citizen scientist group of recovery in general.
That sounds awesome. That would be great.
I know, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's the only thing that's ever worked. I mean, there's a phrase I was gonna say, I can't remember what it was, but yeah, I mean, it's just like it feels overwhelming, and I think what citizen science I think the I use Dave, Feldman and Nick Norowitz and these guys who have basically they're trying this is, the analogy of what I'm describing is that they are basically debunking the idea that cholesterol causes heart disease or LDL, and they've done now they're funding studies. And the more important one, I think, is, and I think this is tangential and parallel to what I'm discussing and describing, is that the metabolic psychiatry movement that is exploding right now and funded by largely by the Basinski Group, a lot of it, because the guy's a billionaire. He founded Roblox, and their son had this issue and came back by changing his diet to a keto diet. And now, Dr. Palmer and Georgia Ede and all these folks, and the tangents to addiction recovery are insane. Like it's identical. I mean, it's the same work. It's like what's going on in your brain that you would hurt yourself, in any way. And so I think that it should be, even them are not really, I mean, they're working on depression, they're working on bipolar, they're working on schizophrenia. Great. I love it. But they're not focused, even them, that group, on addiction recovery, you know?
Which is what, 80% of the population?
I think it's really the answer, you know what I mean? I think it's the reason they can't make the behavioral change is not because they don't wanna be not depressed, it's because they're addicted to what we were talking about earlier in the broadcast. It's like we were talking about why our body craves this feeling that is created by these substances, or whatever behaviors. So, yeah, I mean, I'm that's where we're headed, that's where we're all headed, I think. And I think that the metabolic psychiatry movement is a tangent to what I'm discussing. Because the metabolic psychiatry movement, while there are some MDs and PhDs championing it, it's the regular folks that are bringing the stories and bringing the successes.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm. Very cool. All
Yeah.
right. Well,
It's a
thank you. Thank you so much, Mike, for being here for such a fun discussion and thought provoking, right? Get
yeah,
ourselves thinking about why we do what we do and what makes us happy and doing the
right,
work. And, it's true when I was pre med and I was on that long trek to get into medical school, I remember doing the work and it was like one test at a time, one class at a time, one A at a time. And
right.
there was a lot of that work to do to get to where I wanted to go. But I remember that every time I got an A, I was so happy. I would celebrate the steps that I took and I would go and fight for my A's and ask for extra credit work. What can I do? All kinds of crazy stuff to try to boost my GPA. And yeah, so, just find happiness in doing the work.
So one thing I feel compelled to say right now is like, thank you for listening to my, you know, 40,000-foot view of the world, but I can escape into that a little bit. I still believe everything I said, but one of the things I feel compelled to tell you is that you have to, can I swear? You have to call me before, or somebody before you binge now. You have to use the tools. Bring this back to what do we do today kind of thing. I have a guy who works for me. He's like, he's been working. He's like, when I go off on one of the tangents I just did, he says, that's great, Mike. What do we do today? And so what I
Uh-huh.
feel like right now, there's the alarm for it. You know, you, you just need to use the tools and you know what to do and to not slip back into what was the first, what was
I
the first?
can't not do it.
Not do it.
I can't not do it.
You have to
Yeah.
you have to erase that from your world. It just doesn't exist anymore because that's one of the work parts of this, like erasing that.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and the other thing too is that I need to call you more often when things are not at 911.
Exact
That's what I need to do
point.
because this is what this video is teaching me that when I'm feeling good or when I'm, just in my regular routine doing whatever, reaching out and getting some of that insurance so that I don't get to needing a 911 call as often or because then there's all that pride and my ego and shame and guilt and all those things that get in the way of picking up the phone and calling you.
So let me drill into this real quick before we go, because I got another one too. Like, I would have loved to share where you were that day in between a great conference, visiting your son and going to your friends. You know what I mean? I would have loved to help you even celebrate that. You know what I mean? And I feel like I would be like when I do that, when I make a big deal or do something, I don't really know who to call a lot of times, Like I don't need to. I think some of my mentors, like they're groups of people, and that's what 12 step, or any kind of recovery group is, where you can share your wins, right? And I think at least me, I feel like I'm bragging or my mother used to say not too much shining or something like that, something stupid. Like I feel like I'm not like someone's rolling their eyes when I'm telling them I did something good, right? Like I
Mhm.
should be burdening them with almost like the same thing happens when I don't want to tell them something's bad. Almost identical feeling. You know what I mean? So I would have loved to celebrate your big life,
Yeah, yeah, and when I don't call you, I deprive you of that.
100%. 100%.
Yeah,
Yeah.
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 All right, definitely, definitely food for thought.
All right.
All right, everybody, take care. Thanks for listening, subscribe and comment, and we'll see you next time. Thanks, Mike.
Take care.